Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2. This is Turbo Mail Call episode number 3. And in today's video, I want to try to get through all the packages that I have left. I think I have about 20 or 21 items, including the really big boxes. And there's one over there off camera that you can't see. That's the biggest one. It wouldn't even fit on the table. If you're not familiar with the Turbo Mail Call series, it's, 3 videos now. This is the 3rd video where I'm trying just to get through all the packages that I haven't opened yet, because the backlog was getting real. And I'm not normally doing mail call videos anymore, so this is a way to kind of quickly go through everything so I can inventory it and then make further videos on individual items in a more in-depth fashion. I'll link to the previous 2 videos if you haven't seen those, and if you're looking for something that you have sent me that I haven't shown on video yet, it could be here in this pile, or it might be something that I've also opened in the past. I had some footage where I opened stuff on the, I opened it kind of with a wide shot, and then I used to do a separate on the bench close-up, which was over there. And I have a bunch of things that I haven't filmed that second part. So I need to revive that footage on my NAS, edit it together, and then kind of show the on the bench section of all of that stuff that I've opened. So those things are from maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I opened that stuff and I haven't shown it yet. I don't think anything left here is from 2023 or 2024. So I'm thinking everything here is last year, 2025, or maybe even this year. A couple things have come in recently, I think. So anyhow, that's how it's going. And I think without further ado, let's get right to it. And there's no intro because this is a 2nd channel video. So let's get to opening these packages. And it looks like the first item is going to be item number 500. So this is a running tally of all the things that I've opened up on the channels over the years, including the old original mail calls, super mini mail calls on the 2nd channel, and now the turbo mail calls. Just to add one little thing, I'll just grab a random package here. You might have noticed that there were no videos on either channel last week, and that's because I just decided to take a week off after the holiday season. Things were getting kind of hectic and busy, and then I took some time off. I actually went on a proper vacation, but when I do that, then that means that I can't really make a video. When I get home, I'm just rushed, and I had some other home projects I had to work on, and I figured the beginning of January is a perfect time for me to take a break from releasing videos on both channels. Ad revenue from YouTube is down in the first month of the year. I think people just are spending less money, companies that is, because they have ad budgets that they buy ads for YouTube videos, as far as I'm aware. And at the end of the year, the ad spend goes up. So you actually see an increase in revenue. But then first of the year, your videos that come out, even with the same number of views, you just make less money as a creator. So it's kind of a perfect time to not have a video because you lose less when it comes to the revenue that you could have had by having a video. Right, so this box comes from Mike in Pearland, Texas. Mike is the person that has sent in a bunch of stuff, including a whole bunch of Olivetti computers, PC ones. I think there's 2 of those. Some other stuff, but then also the Amstrad, or not, sorry, not the Amstrad, the Acorn Archimedes. It's right off camera right there. I've had a few videos on the Acorn Archimedes, and it's a freaking amazing RISC-powered machine. The first RISC-powered consumer computer ever, really, came out in the 80s. And I'm definitely going to be getting back to that. And I think Mike went ahead and sent some extra stuff that's for that machine. In addition, Mike is Italian and goes back to Italy and is able to get stuff there and then bring it home with him, which can avoid some of the tariff situations in the US right now. It's very difficult for us to get international packages, and it didn't used to be, but these days, yeah, it's just not really feasible to get packages because you have to pay unknown amount of processing fees and tariffs when they come in, duties and tariffs. And if you buy from a company like AliExpress, they handle that stuff. So you actually don't have to pay that as an end consumer. But when an item comes across from a personal sender, like not a company, it's kind of random what happens here. Like you sometimes get charged tariffs, sometimes you don't. Sometimes there's huge processing fees, even if it's a gift, it's under the allowed exemption. It's just all kind of wild. I'm pretty sure one of the items here is actually something that came from Italy, and the viewer that sent that in ended up paying those fees because I think there was an extra $100 for the processing fee when it arrived in the US. It's just completely uncharted territories right now. So at this point, it's best to not really send stuff internationally because I just don't know what kind of fees I'm going to get hit with. to be able to even pick up the package. But what Mike's able to do is he's able just to get this stuff to his house in Italy when he visits his family, and then just bring it back on the plane, because you still have an exemption for doing that kind of stuff. All right, so I'm pretty sure we have some goodies here. I bet you, well, I wouldn't be surprised if we have some candy, but I wouldn't be surprised if we also have some stuff for the Acorn Archimedes. Okay, so right off the bat, I see there's a note here. Hope you like dark chocolate and coffee. These chocolates are filled with liquid espresso, so it's best to pop the whole thing in your mouth if you don't want to make a mess. And in the morning. These are Pocket Coffee Espressos Classico. That's freaking awesome. Yeah, I do like coffee and I like dark chocolate, so this will be great in the morning to have with my regular coffee. All right, well, let's see what we got here. Everything's labeled already. So we have an ARM2 processor. This is for the Archimedes. Let me find my knife. So the Archimedes that Mike sent in actually has a processor upgrade in it already, an ARM3. It's sort of an add-on that goes into the CPU socket. And I was wondering what the performance was like with the original 8 megahertz ARM processor, and I think that's what we have here. Apparently they're not too expensive when you get them in Europe, but in North America, they're kind of unheard of. So an ARM2 processor, an Arthur 1.2, a real-time clock ×2, and an op-amp ×5. Now, I think the reason why Mike sent these, and these are going to be, I don't know, the RTC, or this is actually the op-amp, is because I had some issues with the Archimedes where it seemed like the real-time clock maybe wasn't keeping time properly, like it would for a while, and then it would forget it. And I haven't done any diagnosis. I have to get back to that machine. The Lisa has been taking up all my time. I think the reason why Mike sent along these op-amps is because there seems to be a quiet volume level coming out of the Archimedes as well, and I haven't diagnosed that either. So it could potentially be one of these op-amp chips. Now, thank you, Mike, for sending both of these along. I think I actually probably had some of these potentially, but the situation in the basement is things are such a mess down here. I kind of lose track of things sometimes, and it's also very nice to actually have those. Okay, here's Arthur 1.2. These look like ROM chips, so I guess this is some piece of software. You know what I'm thinking this might be? I think this is actually the early version of the operating system. So the original Archimedes shipped with, I think, Arthur and the RISC CPU, a RISC-2 CPU, which probably is going to be in this bag right here. And then later they came out with RISC OS, which was the kind of the OS that ran on those machines for a long time. And you could still use RISC OS today on a Raspberry Pi. You could even take a Pi 1 and run RISC OS natively on that. Since the Pi is a RISC processor-based system, the SoC that's on there can run RISC OS, and they ported it to it. So if you want to play with RISC OS like you've seen on the Archimedes, you can totally do it on real hardware with a Raspberry Pi, even a Pi 1. But I think Arthur is the precursor operating system, so that'll be very cool to play around with that. And here it is. This is the processor, the RISC-2 processor. There it is, ARM Acorns, made by VLSI, made in Korea. And was there a date code that we can decipher on here? No, there isn't really. But the VL2333, I think that's the 8 megahertz ARM processor. Mike also went ahead and sent a socket, which is interesting. So I'll have to email Mike to find out why. I'm pretty sure that this chip on the motherboard is just in a socket normally. And then basically the accelerator that I have with the ARM3 that came with the machine is just plugged into the socket. So it's kind of got a reverse looking chip on the bottom of the PCB, and you shove it into the socket, and then it has another ARM chip on there, an ARM3 with some cache and stuff like that. So it speeds it up and accelerates the whole machine. But I really want to see what the Archimedes is like with its original 8 megahertz chip. So that'll be for future videos. I'm definitely excited for this because obviously I have repair work to do with the Archimedes to get this thing up and running again. Not to mention we want to see what the performance is like with this processor, and it'd be cool to check out this original OS Arthur as well. Now the funny thing is most people using the Archimedes wouldn't want to go back to the slower chip in the older OS, but for me it's a bit of a historical thing because I just want to see what RISC computing was like. Okay, so next up, create color paintbrush case. I have a feeling, oh, it says right here, keystrip holder. What's this, Mike? What's keystrip holder? Oh, you know, I think what this is? Oh, Mike. Let me grab the keyboard. Oh, I want to add something, by the way, just now I'm thinking about it. I'm going to be at VCF in Seattle coming up, I think it's in May. I'm going to be there for sure. I'm going to have a desk or, you know, a table or whatnot. I'm going to bring machines to show off. And one of the machines I'm definitely going to want to show off is the Acorn Archimedes. I've just never seen one personally in the US. Well, I have at VCF shows, but I never really had a chance to play with them. So it'll be fun to bring one up to Seattle. So if you're in the Pacific Northwest and you want to come check out this very classic machine, then you can do that at that show. And I'm going to bring other stuff, of course, too. I just haven't decided exactly what to bring in. All right, so keystrip holder, I'm pretty sure what this is this thing that goes on the keyboard. It was just missing. I think I've seen a lot of pictures of these with these missing. I think because they break very easily. And I think it's like a little cover or something. And keystrips would be sort of like what you would have with WordPerfect on a PC, where you'd have legend showing you like what the F keys do, like F7 for exit. I think that's what it is for WordPerfect, stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure this was built in the keyboard, and I never really thought that this would ever be something that could be found, but Mike is a sleuth. Oh, okay, well this one actually is broken, and I think that's probably what happens with these, but at least it kind of will sit in here, it just won't ship very well. Yeah, like it's like that. So what's broken is it's broken on one side. It's no big deal. It's just because, you know, if you're moving the machine, this falls off. I'm sure this breaks all the time, and then people will just toss it out. It's interesting. I mean, I guess the idea probably was originally, when this wasn't broken, that you could tilt this up. That makes the most sense to me. So this has a little basic editor legend thing in here. And you could tilt this up so you could just more easily see those legends. Yes, and it corresponds to the F keys, and Control Shift, and the bottom row would just be the F keys without the modifiers. In fact, it's funny. I'm quite sure this is supposed to go this way. It's just this is in the back the wrong way. It's got a little like tabby thing on the back there that's obviously going to interfere with you viewing it if it's flipped around. So that is the way it should go. Mike will be able to confirm via email, but I'm pretty sure that this probably was already broken, because yeah, there's this shipping container was perfect and there was no broken piece in there. I stand corrected. Here's the broken piece right here. So if anyone has any thoughts of how this would potentially be fixed, I mean, I could try to JB weld it or something, but I doubt that would last. Crazy glue maybe? Here's the little piece right here, and yep, that just goes. I mean, I can't really demonstrate very well, but it goes there. It does line up. So with meticulous gluing, it could be made to work. And someone who's good at building models, that is not me, could potentially get this looking good again. I just don't know if any kind of glue is going to be strong enough to hold this acrylic without snapping. Obviously, this is a bad design in the first place, which is why it breaks on every keyboard. But that's pretty cool to actually have that. So put your comments down below if you have recommendations on how to actually fix this stuff. So I'm just going to put that back in there. And for safekeeping, I'm putting it back in here in case this falls on the floor. I do not want that to break, or rather break worse than it already is broken. All right, I need to speed up a little bit because I'm not going very quick. This is an Ethernet podule and a 46 PC podule. So podules are the expansion modules that go inside of the Archimedes. I think podule sort of is a play on the fact that it's a module, like a plug-in card, and it goes in a pod. There are there are 6 pods, and this was the standard way that these machines were expanded after the fact. And here is one of the podules. This is obviously the Ethernet card. Ethernet 5, atom-wide 1992. Oh, we got a note or something here. Test results on thermal paper, 286K per second. All right, NIC ROMs, sure. I wonder what this extra IC is that's there. Maybe this was for something that plugged in there. Look at that, it's got an ant on the back, that's cool. I know that there were tons and tons of expansion modules available for the Archimedes, including these, but there were SCSI adapters, there were like video capture cards and video overlay and Genlock cards and just a whole bunch of different things. And it's so fascinating that this stuff is kind of unknown in North America, but when I go look online and see the resources, there's just tons of stuff. So serial and parallel. We have a 36SX, or sorry, it's a 46 SLC2, so it's really a 36SX, but with the 46 instructions at least. Merkco processor, some glue logic, multi-IO chip, single SIM, just various stuff. And it looks like, is this a IDE interface and a floppy drive port? I'd have to read up about how to make this work exactly. Pretty sweet. Think of this like the bridge card for the Amigas. So Commodore released those, allowing you to run PC software on your Amiga. And with this, of course, same thing. I remember reading, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there were software emulators for PC as well, just like there were in the Amiga. And it would be kind of curious to actually try those, see how fast those are compared to the hardware, and then compare it to the Amiga. The Commodore Amiga 68,000 base system was the biggest competitor of the Archimedes and the Atari ST to some extent as well. And I heard from a lot of people who had a BBC or some 8-bit computer, when they upgraded to 16-bit, they were thinking of getting the Archimedes and they maybe had one or access to one in school. But then they were like, it was just didn't have the games. And you could get an Amiga 1200, for instance. I mean, that was the early 90s, right? And it had access to this huge library of games. And I think a lot of people just went that route, just to the games are what kids want. And because of all those games and people buying it for their kids and stuff, more people had Amigas, Amiga 500, 600, and the 1200. Therefore, it just felt like the Amiga just got more love than the Archimedes, not to mention worldwide global release of the Amiga, while the Archimedes was really limited to certain countries. And what I'm really, really curious about with this 8 megahertz processor is just to see how fast this is. If we could try to figure out ways to run some comparison benchmarks between 8 megahertz RISC and something like an Amiga with some similar software. So maybe a PC emulator in software is something that would be kind of fun to try, maybe like an XT emulator on both, and we could see which actually performs better. So anyhow, thanks very much, Mike, for sending in all this Archimedes goodies along with this espresso chocolate. And with all these goodies, the 70s towels falling, I'll be getting back to the Archimedes. I have to fix it, obviously figure out the sound problem and the clock problem to get that thing fully situated, and then I can really start to play around with it. But I got to finish the Lisa first, because the Lisa is huge and taking up space. There's pieces of the Lisa everywhere. In fact, I can't really work on the Lisa until I get through this, because under the table are tons of Lisa parts. Anyhow, thanks, Mike, again. Let me just update my thing and let's get to the next item. Okay, so our next package comes from Merkco. I might be saying your name incorrectly, from Zurich in Switzerland. This came before the whole tariff situation, which is why I just talked about getting stuff internationally so difficult. Well, that changed in last year, and this was something I got before, when it was easy and we still had de minimis for getting packages and not having to pay tariffs if they were for personal use. It's my feeling that de minimis exemption will probably never come back to the US, even if administration changes and stuff here. Maybe the tariffs will go away, but the fact that de minimis allowed us to get stuff without processing fees and things that people in other countries are used to paying, and there's infrastructure around supporting that. Here, there isn't. So it's just a big pain in the butt. I have a feeling we're probably never going to go back to the way it was. It'd be nice if we had like $100 exemption or something like that, like some reasonable amount. It was $850 before, $850 that is. So maybe $100. That means we could get small items without having to pay any processing fees and stuff. But it seems like the carriers and UPS, FedEx, and USPS, they don't really know how to deal with all this stuff right now. So they just charge random fees, and it's really difficult to figure it out. Okay, it said test equipment on the outside of the box. So this is the stuff, and this triggers a memory looking at this, even though it's been several months since I got this. I think this is something to do with a 6502 in-circuit emulator. That's vaguely what I recall is happening here. So 6532, and there's a 6502 processor, there's a ROM. We have some harnesses. So this is a 40-pin dip ribbon cable. And then this board, Noventic, has a beagle bone on the bottom, beagle bone green, it looks like. Or is that a Raspberry Pi? Oh, that's just a Raspberry Pi. Okay, so it's got a Raspberry Pi attached to the bottom, hooked up to the GPIO header. I think what's happening is that this is vintage hardware for the 6502, this piece of gear here. And then this actually can connect to there, potentially, and allow you to interface to more modern computers and power this up, because this required proprietary stuff. And then we have this cable harness here with this nice shielded cabling. This actually would be plugging into that header with this, and this goes probably onto the motherboard under test. So you could plug this into your computer, then this would assume the work of the processor, so a 6502 based computer, say like a VIC-20 or an Apple II or something like that. And then with combination of that, I think you could stop the computer and analyze things and do stuff. And then we have another Noventic with a Raspberry Pi Pico on there, and this has a coax cable, 9-pin expansion connector that, oh, that goes onto here like so. So there's the header, there's the connector, you can screw it in. I don't know if this allows you to, say, trigger off specific situations. There was this small PCB in the box as well. And I'm just looking at the way this is designed, this little sandwich. This board is new. This has a 2022 date, probably similar to these. And that allows you to plug this into it. I wonder if originally, or without this, maybe it used this single connector, because there's a single connector down there. This cable here is just 40 pins. It doesn't have extra shielding, because I'm pretty sure we have some like extra grounding happening on between each pin there, and it's twisted pair as well for longer distances. And that's probably what this adapter is doing, is allowing us to use this instead of this short cable, because this is just not very long. And therefore, if you have this plugged in, you don't have a lot of room to kind of plug this into the board under test. Well, this cord is potentially like a meter long or half a meter long. This is pretty short, obviously. So being this is turbo mail call, unfortunately, I do not have time to try to get this stuff running right now. This will have to be a future project. And obviously, this is going to take quite a bit of work for me just to understand how this all works. So if you've had any experience using these types of devices, definitely please comment down below. Let me know what this is all about, especially this Novintic adapter thing that allows me to use this old in-circuit emulator or whatever the right name for this is. Because yeah, this thing is freaking awesome. It's got a memory card in there, luckily. So for the Raspberry Pi, and yeah, like what does this do exactly? Anyways, fascinating stuff. Absolutely could be a game changer if I'm trying to troubleshoot a really specific problem on a 6502 based system. Moving on, this next package comes from Charles in Ballinger, Texas. Hi to all my Texas viewers. I accidentally opened this previously. It's just got something very small in here, and that's because it didn't say mail call on it. It just said Adrian Black to my P.O. box. Okay, in here we have a letter. It says, I recently watched your video. This claims to make your PC 5 to 10 times faster, the Breakthrough 286. I saw that you were missing the clip and plate for the 3M text tool socket that you removed from the Breakthrough. I happen to have that clip and plate here, so I'm donating it to you. I've also included a 186 20 megahertz CPU that came from the socket where I salvaged the chip and plate. Best regards from Retro Computing Ranch. Thanks, Charles. Very cool. Okay, so what Charles is talking about is this particular package, which I don't even know if this is a 286. Yes, it is. There it is, 16 megahertz 286. This might have been the one that was on the Breakthrough. So this is a flip chip, I think this is called. And the way that socket works is this goes onto the board, and there's a metal plate that you have to slide down onto it. And the particular accelerator, the Breakthrough 286, I did not have the little plate, so I couldn't make it work, or I can't remember the details, but what I ended up doing is I just removed the entire socket and just put in a normal PLCC socket, because I happen to have a whole bunch of 286s that take that particular socket. And the one I ended up putting on there maybe was a... So this particular package was relatively common for 186s, which is sort of an embedded processor, and I think that's what Charles has sent along. Yes, there it is. Okay. So there's the 186 chip, so same package as this. Let's extricate it from the Scotch tape. Okay, there it is. So identical to the 286 and has a notched corner. And if we flip these over, there it is. So AMD and Intel. I don't know what this package is called, but this is the little plate and the little bar, and it is made by 3M, and it says Text Tool 3M on there, so maybe that's the name of the socket. I don't think that's what it's called, but that's what the little plate is. What happens exactly? I think it like goes in on one side, you use the little bar to hold it down on the other side, something like that. And there are spring plates that push onto the connectors on the edge. And yeah, that makes contact and then the chip works. And Bob's your uncle. PLCC chips, do I have one sitting here? We can compare, maybe. Oh, look, I happen to have another 286 right here as well. So 8 megahertz one and a 16 megahertz variant. Oh, in fact, look at this. I have this as well, which is a heatsink variant of this top, although that doesn't quite look the same, does it? So maybe that's not compatible? I think I might have tried to use this and I couldn't. Obviously, these are different, so I don't think necessarily this is compatible. But anyways, it's great to have this. I have these flip chips sitting over my little side thing. I'll keep these there with these tops, both of these. So if I ever find one of those sockets that I can't use, I'll have the top cover that Charlie sent in. Thank you very much. Plus an extra 186, which are pretty useless chips. Well, sorry to all the 186 aficionados. If there are any out there, the 186 is useless because it incorporates a lot of the peripherals that are on a PC motherboard into the chip for simplified designs, of course. But the issue is the I/O addresses that Intel used for the various things like DMA controller, interrupt controller are different than on the PC. So it doesn't really result in a PC compatible machine. There are ways to make it work, which is why the Olivetti PC1 that Mike sent in, I think that uses that 186. But it's not really very great, and it's you have to do workarounds and stuff like that. So ultimately, it was just better for embedded applications and stuff like that, which is why Intel made it. They didn't make it for PC compatibility. All right, so the next package is from Amazon. I've had this recently. Now, I think it was drop shipped, so maybe this is actually something I ordered and I just didn't open it. I think when I got this at the time, I just didn't have anything outstanding that I had ordered. It says E-clip assortment. So this may well just been something that I ordered. Let's find out. All right, so this is what we have here. Installation steps. Oh, E-clips. It's similar to this. This was something that a viewer sent in last time. It's still sitting on the bench here. Do I have this circlip? This came from David. This tool here, this Japanese ideal and smart pliers to remove and fasten E-rings. This comes from when I was working on that floppy drive. Oh, it comes with a whole bunch of extra ones. It was the Apple 400K drive. Oh, there's a bunch of oil on here. See that shininess? So I need to be careful, but that is super cool. And the specific tool for doing this. Thank you everyone for sending this. So I don't know who sent this this one in. Let me just double check there's not a note inside the bag. Oh, there is a note. Okay, so this note says this came from David who sent in this tool as well. It says, hope you get use out of this. It's the right tool for the right task. Thank you, David. That is super cool. I'm gonna have to go watch a video on like how to use this exactly. This does have a little installation or instructions on how to insert the tool. So there are different sizes. And this slides in here, I guess, like this. Yes. The instructions are kind of hilarious. Put the clip on the slot. Extrusion installation complete. What? So that's for installing them and removing them. Press the switch, place the tool on the ring, squeeze to remove. What exactly do you squeeze? You squeeze this, or do you just push that way? That's got to be what it is. It pops it off. Oh, there are two different sides to each one of these. So you have the removal side and the installation side. So the side I have on there right now is the installation side. You rotate this around. And I guess this is the removal side. And again, for removal, you just, yeah, just, I guess you just push it, I guess, and it pops it off. Okay, and I was using like a little pick to do it. Anyhow, that's pretty cool. And then this tool, the other one that David sent in, looks like it basically hooks onto the E-hook. Okay, on that side right there. Ah, yes, and you can grip it and hold it so you can easily insert that in. This is good for 3 to 4 millimeter, while this has different sizes, 1.5, 4, 5 millimeter. I think that the one that's in there is 2. But this alone is just awesome to hold them like this, so you could push it on with this tool. Ah, very cool. Thank you, David, for these. I just don't work a lot with these clips, so therefore I just don't really have the right tools for the job, but now I do, and that means next time I go to work on one of these disk drives, it'll be real easy to get these on and off. Freaking awesome. Okay, our next package comes from Sunthar. I think it's Sunthar. Niagara Falls, New York. Hi to all my New York viewers. I have been to Niagara Falls, US and Canada. One of my best friends is from the US side, and I've been over to the Canada side a few times as well. All right, so it could be possible that Sunthar lives in Canada because it says here made in Canada, and just crossed over the border. You can just walk across at Niagara Falls, and sent this from the US side just to avoid the whole tariff situation I talked about earlier. And there it is, Sunthar RGB Tuner revision 1.4. And by tuning, I guess you can adjust the levels and whatnot. This does appear to be almost entirely passive. Let's zoom up a little bit so we can read this tiny text. Ground resistors, minimum 75 ohms. Inline resistors, typically 1K. S-video connector optional. We have pots for RGB. Then we have RGB termination pots. Oh, that's pretty cool. Blanking divider. Oh, this is pretty cool. It's very flexible. Let's see what's in these other little bags here. Oops. Okay, so we have another little SCART adapter. We have space for extra components. Sunthar RGB Mux, made in Canada. We have some extra components here to install onto this board. This one's obviously assembled. And then we have these two ribbon cables. I almost feel like what's happening is this one is for figuring out the right resistance value. So you tune it so the picture looks perfect. And then you hard code it with these components, or, you know, these or other resistors into this board. And that will allow you to just dial in the RGB outputs and tune it to your monitor and make it work, well, as good as possible. Let's take a look at the webpage for this. The RGB Mux board. The objective is a support to simplify RGB Mux mod performed on the CRT. Oh, that's right. Okay. So this is not for a game console. This is for going inside your television set. You would basically attach this, say, to the back cabinet. And the reason why these cables don't have ends on both sides is these are two separate devices, essentially. You would connect this ribbon cable to here and then wire this into your main board for your CRT if you're doing an RGB mod. And the reason you have these two is you dial it in here to get everything perfect, and then you use this to hard code it, like I said, with these resistor values. And then if this is attached to the back of your case, you say, you know, cut a hole out in the case, attach this, then you can easily just remove the back cover and unplug this cable. So this is a pretty cool project, I gotta admit. I have to say, when I've done it in the past, I just like put a 9-pin connector and have to spend a bunch of time trying to figure out the resistor values. But having it tunable like this, that's frankly awesome. That really is awesome. And there are various boards, but the one that I just got here, this one that can go like flush on the case, doesn't really stick into the monitor at all. Therefore, it's gonna fit the best. Oh yeah, here's some pictures of them. This is really creative and very cool. And we even have a section on here about, oh yeah, printing a little template so you can cut out the connector appropriately. That is very cool, really clever. So here's the work in progress. You draw the line, drill the holes, and you can either use like a hole saw, or, you know, you can file it away, just do it the way it works best for you. But here, use a file for a smoother finish. There it is. And there's the SCART connector installed in the North American JVC television from 1997. That is freaking awesome. Yes, everyone from Europe, these are the lengths we have to go through in North America to get SCART on our televisions. There's even a whole section here on which TVs are moddable and which aren't. So these are just ones that obviously have had the work done. I mean, it's quite possible there's plenty of stuff that's also moddable that's just not on this list. This seems like a really good resource for RGB mods, and it's something that I haven't really done too much of. I did one video on a Sony TV that I RGB modded. I'll put a link to this sunflower.com in the description below, and I highly recommend checking this out if you're into RGB modding. Of course, be careful if you're opening a monitor, because there are dangerous voltages inside. Thank you very much for sending that, and thank you for walking it across to the US side and shipping it from the US just to avoid all of the customs difficulty. Okay, let's try this package. It is heavy, and it's from John in Wetumpka, Alabama. Hi to all my Alabama viewers. All right, we have a box within a box, plus some random PC parts. You know what, I can show this stuff a bit better from the top-down camera, so let me just get this stuff all unwrapped and we can take a quick look at what this is. All right, everything is unboxed, and we have a cornucopia of stuff. Some kind of a PCI Express video card, a PCI Yamaha, was it XG sound card, so like a wavetable kind of sound card. It's got its CD-ROM headers attached. Made in the USA, ISA 9-pin. This is a serial port, I suppose. Yeah, 16C550. So this is definitely a serial card. Very small one. That's actually kind of handy, this one, because if I'm doing stuff on the bench, it doesn't have its slot cover, but it doesn't matter. I can just plug this in if I just need to plug in a serial mouse. So that's pretty good. A digital 21041 network card. So it's 10 base T, and it's got coax on it, which is kind of funny for a PCI card. A Realtek network card, and another one, another Realtek card, PCI as well. This is an ISA 3-COM parallel tasking card. These are very handy. So what I'm going to do right here is, I think I talked to John via email. I've had this stuff for several months. Basically, when I have stuff that I'm not going to use, I just put it in a box and I bring it to our local retro meetup. And then people usually snag everything because, you know, not everyone has access to so many PC parts as I do, because I just have a lot of stuff already, but people need network cards and stuff. So there's a whole bunch of useful network cards there. That was another 3-COM card. There's another 3-COM card there. Those are very reliable, good cards. We have a PCI dual IDE card. Not sure who makes that. And then we have another sound card. This is a creative one. I guess it's the Ensoniq chipset that was on those. We have a PCI Connextent NTSC capture card. Oh, it's a Hopage. I don't know how to actually pronounce that. Hopage. ComputerWorks Incorporated. This is an interesting card. We have an ISA PCMCIA dual slot card. Vadim VG469. Curious, very curious. And there was a card. This is a Wi-Fi card. Wireless G. So, of course, with this, you can expand your machine. Why doesn't that go in? Let's go the other way. Nope. That's odd. It doesn't really go in either way. I wonder if this is compatible with a different type of card. Like maybe it's for those flash cards that you saw on like some Cisco devices, because it doesn't go in either way. It's keyed and it, yeah, it does not work. If you get it in, yeah, it's not allowing it to be inserted. And the pins are bent in there. Everything's looking good. If you can see down there. Yeah, curious. Okay, we have more stuff. We have an NEC dual USB port card, another Yamaha XG sound card, dual connector Promise Ultra 66 IDE card. I had a lot of this stuff back in the day. Realtek network card again, another Creative Labs. We have an Opti ISA sound card with a wavetable header. We have a 3D Image 9750 from Trident, and this is an AGP card. Another video card. This is also AGP. Wonder what kind of card this is. STB Systems. I don't think this is a 3DFX card. It would always say 3DFX on the back, so I'm assuming this is some kind of an NVIDIA card or something else that's a little bit less interesting. And we have an Ensoniq video card. Ensoniq is the company that made the sound chip inside synthesizers, but also the Apple II GS. I had no idea that they had a video card. I assume this is not made by them. Well, I mean, it's made by them, but I don't think it's their graphics chip. The 3D Banshee. So this is a 3DFX card, this one. Interesting. We have a manual for our shuttle sound card. We have what looks like a PS2 extension cable. We have, looks like a DVD-ROM drive. We have a 52X burner. Pretty sure that's what this is. Yeah, CDRW. And then we have this Pine brand one. It's also a CDRW. Never heard of Pine brand. Don't know who actually makes that. And then the last one is an LG DVD-ROM drive. Also, it is DVD-ROM and a CDRW. Okay, cool. Thanks very much, John, for saying this stuff in. And like I said, I have a bunch of CD-ROM drives and stuff. I'll be bringing all this to our local meetup for the folks there who can, pick and choose and have any of the stuff here that they would like to fix up their sort of late 90s, early 2000s era PCs, which is where most of this stuff seems to come from. All right, I grabbed another package that was in the pile. It's totally unlabeled, so I must have put it there. Oh, this is something that I ordered myself and I couldn't find. And here it is. It's a plastic welder. So it's, I guess, I don't know, it's cheap. It was from AliExpress. You plug this in, it's all very sketchy. I'm assuming you get 120 volts there. You put these little metal things in, push the trigger, it gets very hot. You push it into the plastic, it sort of melts this staple into the plastic, and then you bend over the little staple arms. So, or you break them off. Oh, okay, kind of cool. So that's neat. Okay, cool. Well, like I said, I couldn't find this, and here it is. And so I don't lose it again, I write on the edge of the box what it is. Funny thing is, there were some other things that I ordered around the time I ordered this that I also can't find. And now I'm wondering if they're somewhere in one of these boxes. I don't think so though, because this was the only thing that was just sort of loose. And I'm definitely missing some like crimp tools and some other things I've ordered. I just misplaced them. I think I put them in a box to bring down to the basement, and then I, got absorbed into the mess down here. All right, next up we have this little bag. I don't remember who gave this to me or what the deal is, but it was in the mail call pile, so I'm assuming that it was something that someone gave me, and I put it there for looking at some point in the future. I wonder if this came from one of the VCFs or some of the shows I went to. See what these little PCBs are. Interesting. I am not sure what these are. I mean, this has Apple colors on the sticker, so I'm thinking these are somehow for 6502, but these PCBs aren't labeled at all. It just says power. And what's in here? We got some more stickers. Yeah, Computer Club stickers. I don't remember where this even comes from. So if you recognize this stuff, these PCBs, please comment down below or maybe email me to let me know what's going on here and what I have missed exactly. And the bag is just sort of random and unlabeled. It's a DigiKey bag. I think that was something that I ordered at some point in the past. Okay, our next little package, this comes from Shaggy in Herndon, Virginia. Hi to all my Virginia viewers. We got Hesswriter instruction manual, Hessmon. Ooh, these are VIC-20 cartridges. Okay, it looks like we have a letter, so we'll take a look at that. So Hesswriter and Hessmon for the VIC-20. Something in there. Oh, I think those are voltage regulators for the VIC-20. Greetings program. We talked a bit over email about a few things I have that you might be interested in. So here is the VIC-20 HES monitor and the right cartridges, along with a TO3 switch mode regulator. I'm not the best at surface mount soldering, but using a hot plate was a bit easier than just using soldering iron. There are several projects out there for this, but this one I used is located here. And there is the GitHub repo. So switch mode PSU'd in TO3. I've been following you since the beginning and have always enjoyed your content. Thanks for all the great information and entertainment. Shaggy. Okay, well, let's take a look at this regulator. So what's cool about these is inside, like say the VIC-20, you can pop one of these in and the VIC-20 gets really hot. But with one of these in place, it doesn't generate a whole bunch of heat. These packages, the TO3 is normally a linear voltage regulator, usually a sort of a silver round package, and they generate tons and tons of heat. That's why it has a huge heat sink inside the VIC-20. But this little surface mount thing, that doesn't have that problem. Wow, this is really, really neat. I am impressed. It's open source and using a hot plate. I have a little hot plate. Where is that hot plate? Oh, here it is. I've never actually used this little hot plate, but there it is. It's a little hot plate thing, and you can just put the PCB without the pins on it. Of course, those were hand soldered. And this thing heats up and it will reflow the parts really easily. So you just place them with tweezers, put the paste on there, and then Bob's your uncle. So my assumption that these pins carry the voltage and the current up to this top board. It probably has traces to move back and forth, and it will heat it up, and these layers here insulate it. Yeah, there we go. I have that, and I've never used it. And I'm not super familiar with HESMON or HESWriter, human engineered software. So this will be a machine language monitor type cartridge and a word processor, I'm assuming. So HESMON, yep, breakpoints. External linker. This command is rather difficult to understand. Basically, this command facilitates the transport of machine language programs from one 6502 base computer to another, like PIT-VIC, the PET, VIC-20, etc., by translating the system calls from one computer to another. I'm sure with this cartridge you can assemble code, you can disassemble code. Of course, because it's a cartridge, it's not a piece of software you can load. You can't do it for cartridge-based games, but if you're writing your own machine language stuff, it's potentially useful. I mean, the problem with VIC-20 is you need extra memory a lot of times. The onboard memory is not enough. So I suppose you could use this with one of those cartridge expanders. You could have RAM plus the cartridge. Simple assemble, breakpoint, compare, external relinker, verify RAM, exit to basic. Okay, that's kind of neat. That'd be fun to sort of play around with a little bit. And HESWriter, I assume this is our text editor and or word processor, whichever this is. Allows you to enter text into your VIC via keyboard and then edit and format the text before printing it. Yeah, full 24 columns. I think that's what the VIC-20 has across. Cool, well thanks Shaggy very much for this stuff. And I'm gonna stick this over here off to the side in my little pile of parts so I can use it next time I have something with a TO3 package. And next time I have the VIC-20 out, I'll have to test out these HES cartridges. Human interface or human engineered software as opposed to AI, LLM engineered. Humans did this stuff. All right, next package comes from the folks over at iFixit. I have shown off their little portable soldering iron before. Here is one of them right here. So this little solder station, I actually use this all the time now. I had some issues with it, so I actually have two of them here. They sent me a second one. There were some firmware bugs that I ran into with this. It's basically a little power station. So this is a little power bank, so it's battery powered. And then we have a USB-C soldering iron, and it's 100 watts. So it's USB PD at 100 watts, power delivery that is. So it's relatively fast. I used to use, where is it? Actually, I put it away. Oh no, it's right here. I used to use the Pine Sill, and this older Pine Sill was only 65 watts. Now there's a 100 watt version of this as well. This Pine Sill has the little thin tip on it. One of the issues with these right now, and maybe this is not the case anymore, but when I first got these is there was not any other tips you could order. So you couldn't order a fine tip or different styles of tips. The one that's on here is pretty good though. I like it. It's a chisel tip that works well for me. And the cool thing about these is, of course, they're battery powered, so you can just pick it up and move it anywhere. And of course, you can just plug the soldering iron itself, this, into any power bank. The problem is there's no way to adjust the temperature on here. You adjust it through the controls on there. So, well, you can adjust it by using this on your computer. So you plug it into your PC, Mac, whatever, and it has a web interface, if I recall, and then you can adjust the temperature. It doesn't heat it up when you plug it into your computer, of course. You can get the temperature dialed in, then plug it into a power bank with USB power delivery, and this will heat up and has a little on-off switch there and a light to tell you it's running. So anyways, let's see what this stuff is here. Oh, we got some the narwhal. I told these folks that iFixit if they ever had stuff that they might think I liked, then they could just go ahead and send it. And that's what we have here. So this obviously 6-in-1 driver. We got a little swivel end to it. Can pop that out. I assume these come out, so we do. We got Phillips, we got a flathead there, and we have the 2 different sizes. Very cool. Now it says it's 6 in 1, and I assume what we have is we have these 2 bits, and they're both double sized, that's 4. And then what we have, if we pop this out, there are 2 different nut driver sizes. That's pretty clever, actually. So you just pop it into the tool, and you flip that around depending on which size you need for the nut driver. And I think it actually says it right on here. So yeah, we have a number 1 and number 2 Phillips. We have a 5.5 and a 7 flat. And then we have a 1/4 and a 5/16 for the nut driver. That seems useful. And of course, like typical iFixit stuff, it's pretty good quality. And let me just put this back together. It is a little oily, I guess. It's leaving oil residue on the bench. Putting this back together, it's got a nice firm click when it goes in because it has a little ball bearing there. That's nice. This is sort of a composite plastic, the handle, so it's not metal, but it means it's not overly heavy. Now, I do use these iFixit tools all the time. These were sent in by viewers, or maybe I bought one of these and the other one was sent in by viewers. I can't remember. These are pretty handy, these iFixit toolkits. This is the small one, obviously. I have damaged a couple of the bits. I think it's in the larger one that I've damaged it. I think one of the Torx bits got messed up. But obviously you can get replacements for those relatively easily. If anyone's ever used the narwhal, let me know. But I think this will be pretty cool in my little travel toolkit. Probably I'll end up putting, well, now that I have 2 of these soldering irons, I'll probably put one of these plus this and some other random tools. For instance, it's always good to have an extra one of these in there in my little travel kit. That way I can solder, I can unscrew stuff, take stuff apart, plus snip things. Your essential tools. Our next item is something that was given to me locally, hence it's not in a box. This was given to me by Travis, who's one of our local Retro Computer Club members here in the Portland area. And what this is something for the Commodore 64. It's specifically called the TeensyRom. Now, this has a Teensy, which is sort of like a Raspberry Pi type board in there, hooked up to a PCB carrier that plugs it into the C64. And the whole idea about the TeensyRom is it adds cool functionality to the 64. So we have a USB port, we have an Ethernet port. There's the Teensy board, you can just see it in there. We have an SD card slot, and then we have a micro USB on that side. But the main big deal about this is inside this bag, and thank you, Travis, who gave me this whole kit, and he gave it to me months and months ago, and I haven't had a chance to even really test this, this is an NFC card reader for the 64. So this is the actual card reader, there it is, and it plugs into the USB port on the TeensyRom, and then it's USB-C. And when this is connected up, well, it's still sealed in the bag. When this is connected up, oh, there's actually 2 of these there, that's handy. And I guess we have an SD card, maybe with software on there. Well, what happens is you can use these generic cards you can get from AliExpress to just tap, and the machine will instantly load the software. So you can put a bunch of games and stuff on here, and this can reset the 64 and load your software. And if we take a look at these cards here that Travis gave me, yep, the whole idea, 8-bit software. So you can print stickers and stick them on these cards. And I think if we tap this with the SD card that's in here, we'll get the 8-bit dance party. So I'm gonna get the 64 out. I normally am not gonna be doing testing on these types of videos, but because this is such a darn cool thing, I wanna show this off. Oh, and here it is. Oh, there it is. So we actually have the 8-bit dance party on that one. And now the program is not stored on the card, it's on the SD card. This just tells it how to launch. And I think this is the Donkey Kong game where the theme song from the 8-bit dance party comes from. Oh, and actually looking at this, I assume actually it does not plug into the normal USB port, it must plug into the micro USB. So that looks like a USB on-the-go adapter. All right, first things first, is the 64 gonna work? Come on. Yes, there we go, it's working. All right, in with the TeensyRom. In fact, I'll just try it first without the SD card connected. Let's see what this does exactly. Yeah, there it is, TeensyRom. Now, I'm sure there's much newer firmware. Oh yeah, it's got a real-time clock on here as well. USB drive. Oh, so there's already a bunch of stuff loaded into here. So we have program files and we have cartridge files on here. So if we load Miss Pac-Man, for instance, there it is, just instantly loads up. And that quick loading is what these cards are all about. So you tap and it should just load very quickly. All right, just plugged the reader into the other USB port without using a small adapter. And now the light's on at least. So let's switch to the SD card. And let's try this. I'm obviously doing something wrong, but I went into the settings and there is NFC enabled. That was off. Read, write, delay. reboot the TeensyRom, sync time with Ethernet, which I don't have connected. This doesn't have Wi-Fi. I don't think this Teensy, it's Ethernet based. Okay, so I just plugged it back into the Teensy on the back USB port, power cycled the computer, and now, okay, there we go. It freaking works. Oh no. Okay, so this is Donkey Kong, obviously. And look at that, it just loaded up instantly. That is so cool. So I am curious. Let's start the game. Well, I haven't run the actual game in so long. There it is. There it freaking is. All right, I don't have a joystick hooked up. I'm curious if I try to read again, what does it do? Nothing. Oh, but that switches. Oh, that's so freaking cool. So if it's already in the game and you touch it again, it doesn't do anything. See, nothing's happening. But if we take this Donkey Kong card and we touch it, it instantly reboots and it loads the other game. Oh, that is so cool. So if you have a 64 and you want to have friends over and like they don't know how to load software because it's a bunch of typing and stuff, get one of these TeensyRoms and then you can just program a bunch of these really inexpensive cards. You get these from AliExpress and then you just tell them, just go boop. Just look at that. That is so freaking cool. Travis, honestly, that is just so awesome. I don't know if these ones are programmed, these other cards. Let's see. No, these are not programmed. That one wasn't, at least. Nor is that one or that one. Yeah, just the two that Travis printed these cool labels for. So this will be super fun to bring along. For instance, if I want to show off the Field Found 64, maybe up at VCF in Seattle coming up later this year, then I can have these programmed with some fun games and stuff, and you just tap it and load the software. It's so amazing to see how quickly that loads. Now, I don't know for sure if, for instance, the TeensyRom supports disk images or if it can only do like PRG cartridge files and stuff like that. These happen to be PRG and cartridge files, so they work. But just the fact that you can swap so fast, it's so cool. Really, really, really cool. So I'll put links down below to the TeensyRom and this whole setup here. So you can check this out for yourself, but this is incredibly clever and I absolutely love this. I really love this. Sorry that it took me so long to get to this, Travis, but it's so awesome to show this in operation. I am curious why there's the little adapter for the micro USB on the go here. That doesn't seem to be necessary. Obviously, something I really need to do is update the firmware on the TeensyRom, because I'm sure there are more new features. And then you need to learn how to program some of these. Maybe you plug this into a computer, you do it that way, or maybe you could do it through a TeensyRom. I'm not sure. And then I need to make some labels so I can have some different software to run. Oh, I don't know. It makes me giddy just to see this operating. It's so cool. And when Travis first showed this to me, I was absolutely amazed. So yeah, very, very cool. Thank you very much for this, Travis. And again, sorry it took me so long to get to this. I think it's been easily a year since I've had this thing. Okay, our next package comes from Super SVGA, another local person here in Portland that I see all the time at the meetups. And this has a ton of stuff in it because Super SVGA has been giving me stuff for a while now, and I just keep putting it in this box to show off on one of these videos. So we have a cornucopia of amazing, amazing things. Okay, so first off, this is for the Macintosh Portable, and I have one I need to get to. People have been asking about it forever. If I recall, this is a zero weight state RAM card for the Portable. It uses SRAM, or yes, it does. Oh, it's got some bodges. This was handmade by Super SVGA. Anyways, with this in there, it's a PDS memory card slot and it's zero weight state, so it's much faster than the onboard memory, and it makes the Mac Portable absolutely fly. And it's already a pretty fast machine. I think it runs at 16 megahertz, 68,000 based, if I recall. So that's the first wild item. Next up, this is a potential Plexus P20 miniature version. Plexus P20, that machine that's behind me, let me move the camera so you can see it there. There it is. The P20 is right there. I'm gonna get back to that soon so we can see it run again. And then I'm gonna have this at VCF up in Seattle. And then I intend, well, I'll talk about what I intend to do with it on the video when I make it. But what this is, potentially, is a recreation of that computer in a miniaturized forms. 2 surface mount 68,000s, the ROMs, we have RAM, glue logic, stuff like that. Super SVGA was super instrumental in getting that machine up and running, helping me do that. A bunch of people on Discord were hugely helpful, especially folks up here in the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, Superfast VGA, yeah, like, you know, made this and had this manufactured, and it's unknown if this works. Oh, there's a glue logic on the back as well. We don't know if this actually works, but I need to talk to Superfast VGA and, well, before this machine goes away, and we need to do some more testing and stuff, because there's something else in this box that's related to that computer as well. And let's see if I can get to that. So what were these? Oh, these are chip holders. So let me grab a chip. So this one's 40 pin dip. Yeah, that's right. Little chip holders, and there's a whole bunch of them here. Next up is this, the Plexus P20 RAM board prototype. So this should be, I think, an 8 meg or maybe a 4 meg RAM expansion for the freaking Plexus. That computer, from my recollection, has been a while. I think it has 2 megs of RAM in it. This should bring it up, I think, to 4 or maybe 8 megs of RAM. Something that never existed for that computer. This is how good Superfast VGA is. Just whip stuff out like this. Of course, it's totally untested. There's a CPLD on here with glue logic. Who knows if this works? We need to test this out in this computer, and that's why, another reason why I need to have Superfast VGA over to really get with that machine so we can test it out. And I don't know what I did with the other PCB already. Oh, here it is. And then, you know, the mini Plexus as well. So we could make a miniature version of that, but this is something that's untested. We got to test to see if this works or not. Maybe this will need a bodge or two on there, but to upgrade the RAM on there or make it that much more usable to actually have multiple users log into this, because I hope in the future that is going to be possible. I have a terminal server. Anyways, that's besides the point. This is not for this video. That will be for a future Plexus video. This stuff is amazing. All right, next up, we have another thing for the portable. So this is a new battery for the Macintosh Portable, and this has a lithium-ion battery inside, and this is a 3D printed case. This will allow the thing to work as a portable again. So, yep, this goes with that RAM card that I had in here a second ago. So I really need to get that portable fixed, because now I have multiple accessories to get that thing up and running. This says Free SCSI Debug Board. Do I remember what this is? No, I don't. So termination resistors. I'll have to ask Superfast VGA what this is exactly, because I don't remember, and it doesn't seem to be written on there. There's going to be stuff in here I don't remember what it is. Okay, we have a replacement hybrid for the Mac Portable. Apparently these go bad all the time, so it's this large package. We have extra pins there, so I may need this in the reparation of the portable. So that's freaking amazing. This was designed by, yes, Superfast VGA as well. Reza is Superfast VGA's first name. All right, next up, these are, what are these, 19-pin connectors? Yes, 19 position D-subs, and they don't have the pins, so you fit these in, you push them through there. And these are the same connectors used on Apple computers for the floppy drive, and they're very, very hard to find these days. So here's a little assortment that I got from Superfast VGA. Look, we have more there. And we have this type. What is this? Like, you need a special crimp tool, I assume, to make these. HDMI plug. Okay. And then these would go onto a ribbon cable. So very, very handy for making more of these. Oh, yeah, these are probably different genders. Okay, so we have the male and female of that type where you have to push the pins in. That's male. This one is female. Now, the connector that's on the back of the computer is also female, so that wouldn't go with that. These are PCB mount connectors, also 19 pins. So I have a good selection of these now, which is very, very handy. This here, some kind of an amp. What is this? Oh, SIM removal. And this is for those really annoying SIMs on Mac Pluses, Mac SEs, where the connectors always break. This thing bends the pins out just the correct amount, I guess somehow, and then you can lever the module out. Amp made this thing, and this is actually size adjustable, shows it there in the picture. It is super cool. I need to keep this handy for next time I'm working on a Macintosh with those fragile connectors, and give that a try to remove those sockets. Okay, next up we have test probe connectors. I shouldn't have been keeping these in this box this whole time. So alligator clips, and this would connect up to this type of connector, which, for instance, here's a set of the leads that it goes with, and these are really, really nice quality. So it came from Arrow. Caltest Electronics CT4422s, and I think you can pull off like the probe end, plug in these alligator connectors. insulated probes here with the covers on them. Here's some Pomona brand, another excellent quality company. So these are clips and these are big, so not for like legs of ICs, but you can clip onto, say, inside electrical panel if you want a really solid connection. That's what we have there. And yeah, and that is actually it for all the stuff that Super SVGA has sort of given me over time, and I've finally been able to show it. It's all been in this box for mail calls, and then I just didn't get to it, and then the mail calls didn't happen. I need to sort this stuff out, put all like the test probes and stuff with my test leads, which are hanging over there. Mac Plus or Mac Portable stuff all needs to go together. I need to ask Super SVGA what this board is about, but then we have the RAM card for the Mac Portable, the battery, and then we have the Plexus stuff as well. Oh yeah, and the hybrid module for the Mac Portable, and then yeah, Plexus things. So lots to get to. I got to get back to the Plexus, and then I'll be testing out that RAM card. And well, I'll talk more about the Plexus when I get back to the video, but there is an emulator for the Plexus now. There's, you know, us being able to dump the stuff from that hard drive that was in there allowed us to kind of recreate this computer and resulted in stuff like this. This wouldn't have really been possible without the data that we found on the hard drive from the original designer of that machine. If you haven't seen the whole series on the Plexus, I will link to it down below. In fact, there's a Supercut video, which is like 4.5 or 5 hours long. That's like the start to finish of me discovering that machine, figuring out how it works, getting it working, you know, getting the data off the hard drive. There was just a huge community effort. That was an incredibly fun project. Anyhow, thank you for Super SVGA for all this awesome freaking stuff. And what's also cool and awesome is there aren't that many packages left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 things left. Will I be able to get through it in this video? I don't know. But I need to take a break because I got to eat some dinner, and then I'll be back because maybe I can get through this in one video. That'll be awesome. And instantly just updating my laptop. I've looked at 10 things so far in this video, but like I said, we still have, what, 7 more to go, so I gotta speed up, Back from dinner, adult beverage in hand, and we're moving on to the next package. This comes from Ian. Ian is the maintainer of the RGB to HDMI project. One of my favorite modern projects for all these computers. I've shown it on the channel so many times. I have a couple of them sitting right here. It's a Raspberry Pi Zero inside there. There's a CPLD digitizer, connects to the GPIO lines on the Raspberry Pi, and then outputs HDMI like pixel perfect. You know, I've used it a million times. I think everyone watching pretty much knows what it says. This, I can tell this package is old, unfortunately. It has always fallen to the bottom of the big box of packages, and I think this date on the email I have attached to it is 2023. So I said there wasn't going to be any more old packages in this video. Well, obviously I was incorrect. It's funny, inside the box here we have a bunch of newspapers from the UK, and yeah, 2023 dates on this. What's the news? Belfield to Mary in jail. Okay, whatever that's about. I think from my recollection, RGB to HDMI started as a project for BBC Micros and other British 8-bit microcomputers, and then it has completely blossomed from there and pretty much supports everything under the sun. And I think what we have here, oh, I need to get the email I had taped to the box, because I think this email talks about all of the stuff that's in here. So it looks like these are, yeah, improved versions from the stuff that I generally use, and it's now a couple years old, so there's probably newer stuff beyond this as well. I think it was in Turbo Mail Call 2 or 1 that I showed off the new audio injection board available for RGB to HDMI. So that came out after all of this stuff did. This is all the stuff that was sent along. Okay, so socket spares, that's for the digitizer board. C64 Luma board complete. Oh, wow, okay. So this is an entire RGB to HDMI, just like the one I showed off a second ago. But instead of having the digital input, the 9-pin that this thing uses, this has the comparator board on it. So for Lumicode, which, let me unplug my other RGB to HDMI. This is the one that I generally use for Lumicode. So it has some tape on it because the case is kind of falling apart. It's 3D printed. I could just print another one. But on the end of this connector is an RCA jack. And this allows Lumicode to be input into this, and then this does the full decoding of the Lumicode data. So let me try to explain quickly what Lumicode is. Imagine the NES video signal. It's got 256 pixels across or something like that. I don't remember the exact number. Say it's 256. Well, what Lumicode is there's a little FPGA that sits under the PPU or the graphics chip on the NES. And it's the same for the 64 and any other system that supports it. And it will look at the video signal or the signals going into the video chip and then reconstruct the video signal and output essentially a composite video signal. But instead of 256 pixels across, it's maybe 512, it doubles it. And to encode the color information, those 512 pixels across, it actually varies each one, say, by 4 levels. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's 4 bits. And because every pixel of the NES, 256 pixels across, is 2 pixels, but it's double, it's 512, and it's 4 bits and 4 bits. Well, the RGB to HDMI using the comparator board, and what the comparator is it allows it to not just sense a 0 or a 1 on the video signal coming in, but actually is an analog comparator with different voltage levels. So it's able to sense, this is actually color 0, 1, 2, or 3, right? Because remember, there are 4 different brightness levels being output, and that's the 4 bits. It turns those into the bits. And when you combine it with the pixel next to it, because remember, it's 256 into 512, well, then you end up with 8 actual bits of color, which, what does that represent? 256 colors, which is more than the NES actually needs. And that maybe the NES is only using, or the Lumicode NES only using 3 bits. So color 0, which would be black, and then 2 shades of white, and well, that would be 3 bits, right? I don't remember the exact specs, but that's really what Lumicode is. And the RGB HDMI can decode that, and you load the NES profile into this, or say the 64 profile, and that sets up the decoding of those pixels and the exact color levels that, or the color values they should be in the normal color space. So when you pick NES on here, you're getting the NES palette loaded into this. It's already been pre-programmed, and it's able to decode using those 512 pixels across at those various brightness levels, every exact color that the NES pixel is, and it just makes it pixel perfect. And Copper Dragon is the one that makes the little board that sits under the PPU in the NES, and also for the 64, the VIC-2. There's a bunch of other systems that it's available for, and the RGB to HDMI can decode all of those. So using this hooked up with just a single little RCA cable into the NES, and I know I've shown this in a video before, you get perfect, pixel perfect output from your NES. And that's not even needing to use like an RGB or NES RGB or any of those types of board. Lumicode is frankly extremely, extremely cool. Now, if we pop this apart, if I can, right, there we go. So what this looks like it is so the Raspberry Pi Zero is underneath there. This is the CPLD digitizer board, very similar to the one that I have in here. The biggest difference is it has this extra IC, which I think handles the comparator. That's the analog to digital conversion for this video signal, or maybe some of these tiny ICs, I don't know. And it has this little tiny 3.5 millimeter jack, which is what this cable is for. So this is an all-in-one comparator board. Now compare this to what's inside here, and I don't really want to take this apart because this case is completely breaking. So there's the CPLD digitizer, but the comparator board is actually a third little board sandwiched in between this and the Raspberry Pi. And that has the circuitry on it that's able to take this analog signal and convert that into different, you set the thresholds of the different voltage levels for, off, white, and those 2 middle levels, or maybe it's 1 middle level, I don't remember what it is. And that's all built into this single board. So this is a great solution now. If you want to use Lumicode, you just need to buy this little board, add it to an RGB HDMI, and you're off to the races. Okay, cool. So I spent too much time already talking about this. I need to move quickly here because there is a lot to cover and there's so much more. Okay, so this says resin case, which I kind of assume is exactly what this is. Now, this has been sitting around the basement a little while, and I must say the casing's a little funky looking. I wonder if that's from time. Interesting. But this is great because I have a couple other RGB HDMIs that are loose, so I can put those in that case. You can also 3D print the case, which is pretty much what's happened here. I think I got this case from Retro Hack Shack. I can't remember. And yeah, like this used to have little pegs that held it together, and they've all broken off because I've had to take this apart a few times. And once you take it apart a couple times, it breaks entirely. And it looks like we had a second case, so there are 2 extra cases, which is awesome. PC buffer board. So what this is, it's the normal 9-pin input. But as opposed to what I'm doing here, where I'm inputting the 5-volt DTL signals directly into the CPLD, which can damage it. And I have damaged it in the past. This is just a buffer that buffers between the 5-volt TTL and the 3.3 volt logic that the CPLD actually uses. It is 5-volt tolerant, but if you're not careful, you can damage it, which is what I've done in the past. So I should probably add this into this RGB HDMI, so when I keep on the bench, and I will have to modify this case a little bit for the 9-pin. Although maybe it actually sticks through. You know what? I think it actually sticks through. Okay, awesome. Okay, this is the analog board. So this is that comparator board that essentially is able to take analog inputs and convert that into a digital signal. Now this one, as opposed to the Lumicode one, the Lumicode one only has one channel of input. It has a composite video signal, this RCA jack, that's it. This can actually do this analog comparator stuff on multiple inputs. So even though on this one, I'm only using this one here, I'm only using a single RCA input, it actually supports multiple bits. That's important for things like the Coco, the Color Computer 3. I think this works on that, and it's able to use the multiple channels to build up the entire color palette. Also, I can't remember what else this is used for, maybe the Apple IIgs, although no, I hooked up my 2GS with a digital connection and that works as well. But there are other solutions where you need multiple channels of analog input to make it work. But yeah, so that's what the analog board looks like. This gets sandwiched between the CPLD digitizer and the Raspberry Pi Zero. And that is what's in here, although I think the letter indicated that this is a newer version. So Ian wrote, the changes from the issue 3.4 boards you already have, protection resistors in series, option for single pin headers, reset, software reset. So yeah, it's slightly improved. The 4GS analog board, so this one here versus what I have now. Issue 3, I think, is the one I have now. This uses comparators with a much higher bandwidth, likely work up to 100 megahertz. The previous design was limited to around 20, so that would be what I have in here. Interesting. It also supports 64 color discrimination without requiring any additional components. Previous design required an extra part fitted to the other side of the board to support more than 27 color discriminators. And then the TC buffer board, that's whatever, I put it away already. The one I already showed, that has a buffer chip instead of, resistors and stuff like that. Next up, we have the Atari ST pickup board. So this is something that I'm definitely eager to try. So you do not need something like the Lumicode with the Atari ST. Atari ST, I think it's the shifter chip. This is what generates the video. You're able to use something like this under that chip, and then I think you run this cable out of the case. So that is really cool. We have Raspberry Pi Zero. Don't need to show that because everyone knows what those look like. CPLD board issue 7. Is this the one? Yes, this is the one the letter was talking about. Okay, so this is for digital input. So this CPLD board specifically is the digitizer. So this chip here is doing the digitization and then sending that down to the RGB HDMI over GPIO. Into this, you would plug either that buffer board, this one here, PC buffer board, or we would plug in the analog board. Either one of these would connect to that pin, as a little bent, would connect to this board. Now, the thing is, you don't have to use this, which is what I'm doing here. This cable is just plugged directly into that connector, and that's inputting the PC video signal directly into this, and the CPLD is able to do that digitization. It goes without saying, by the way, that all the stuff you're seeing here is completely open source. So it's all available on GitHub. You can make it yourself, or you can buy it from somewhere. It's free to make. Anyone can make it, sell it, do whatever. It's just obviously the licensing applies. If you make changes and stuff, you just need to make sure you upstream those back into the project or share that stuff. Another CPLD board there. Awesome. 12-bit extender board. I wonder if this is required for the Atari ST. I think that is exactly the case. Oh, and it says it right here what this is. 12-bit extender board, protection resistors, diodes on all inputs, similar to the 8-bit extender board, but adds 4 further bits to give you 12 bits per pixel. You need that for machines that have more colors. And yes, there's that larger connector. So this does plug underneath the digitizer. So there's this connector and that little pin header. And then we have this larger connector that goes to the Atari ST pickup board. So with that little thin ribbon cable, then you just have the RGB HDMI hang off the back, and you get pixel perfect HDMI with 0 latency, by the way, I might add, out of your Atari. So you just need these parts combined together. And the final thing is an Amiga 500 pickup board. So this goes under Paula, I think it is, and does the same stuff as the Atari thing. And yep, there it is. And that's under whatever, I think it was Paula, like I said. And you just run this out of the computer, and there you go. You get perfect upscaled HD video out of your RGB HDMI, like 1080p if that's what you need. And it's 0 lag. It's awesome. Amiga adapter for external RGB to HDMI, issue 2. And the thing about the Amiga is there are internal solutions as well with an RGB HDMI directly in the machine. There's one for the Amiga 2000 that plugs into the video slot because it has the same signals that you can get on under the chip. And then I think maybe there's one where the RGB to HDMI could be inside the machine. So you need this plus the CPLD digitizer and the Pi Zero kind of all sandwiched in there. I think that might exist. I just don't quote me on it. Definitely exists for the machines with the video slot, the expansion video slot. I mean, it goes without saying, of course, you could just use this ribbon cable with this little pickup board and then just, put the RGB HDMI somewhere inside the case where it fits and then just run the HDMI cable directly out. It's not like you really need to manipulate the settings ever on the RGB HDMI. It pretty much is set it and forget it if that's how you want to use it. Going back to the letter, it talks about the Lumicode stuff that I showed at the beginning. That's this thing. So this is a cost-reduced board that combines the CPLD with parts of the analog board just enough to support the Lumicode signal. It can also work with the Apple II. So if you want to get pixel-perfect Apple II video, you can use something like this. I think it would also work with the IBM PC, potentially, as in the CGA card, I think, externally, without having to run the digital stuff. But you can also do it digitally, so that's probably why it's not really on here. It also supports the ZX80, ZX81, the Ohio Superboard, and supports Copper Dragons, Lumicode for the 64, 128, Atari 800, VIC-20, and there will be likely more in the future. Yes, look, there was already the NES one, which I mentioned, and I'm curious if there are more. Let's take a look. All right, so we are on Copper Dragon's website. Look, here's the list. So NES, the Commodores mentioned already, Atari 8-bit line of computers, including some kind of a French variant. There's a ZX Spectrum 16 and 48K version of the ULA digitizer. And what's great about that one, by the way, is there are versions of the Spectrum that have RGB output, and then you can use the analog board to get the pixel perfect video. But on the original version of the Spectrum, there is really just composite video on those. The ULA does not output anything except for just the composite video. It's all internal to that chip. So that's a great way to get a perfect pixel perfect display on one of those old machines. ColecoVision uses a TMS 9918, is that the chip? Which is also used on the MSX, TI-99, Seika SG-1000. So that's neat. I didn't know that one was out. There's a G7000 digitizer for the Philips Video Pack. What is that? I don't even know. And then the Intellivision has one, the stick digitizer. How awesome is that? The video pack, oh, the Magnavox Odyssey, that's what it's sold for here in the US. Okay, cool, so you can get pixel perfect display on that as well. Now this just goes on to say what we already kind of knew. The BBC Micro, Master 128, and the Electron doesn't need the Lumicode stuff at all. It can just use the analog RGB HDMI, the ones that I've already showed with that little comparator board. So DIN 6, Amstrad CPC, ZX Spectrum, the later versions that have the RGB output. There's a Sinclair QL as well, plus of course all the PC cards, MDA, CGA, EGA, you would just use DB9, and the C128 80 columns is CGA, so that's what just uses the normal digital mode. But Copper Dragon has done an amazing thing with these digitizers, and I gotta say, the PPU one for the NES is in one of my NESs, and it really works freaking great. And I just rewired it into the RF output, so I disabled the RF output. So that jack on the NES front loader is now this video signal, this Lumicode video signal, which just, if you plug it into your TV, you'll see an image, but just it's kind of black and white, and it looks weird just because of the way those pixels are, doubled and all that stuff. But it's still recognizable as an NES, but then it's decoded perfectly by the RGB to HDMI and looks fantastic. So thank you, Ian, for sending in all this stuff. It's very embarrassing how long it took me to get to all this stuff, but I'm glad I finally did. And I really need to start putting this stuff to use. And I obviously use the RGB HDMIs all the time, but I need to do the little upgrades and add some of these new boards and stuff. And yeah, this is just fantastic. I need a road case, things that I can bring with me on trips. Some of the stuff I've already showed, like this screwdriver here and like the soldering iron, but having one of these RGB HDMI with like kitted out in my box of tricks is great, because sometimes you just need to plug in a VGA monitor into an old retro computer, and you can totally do it with these, because yes, it's HDMI output, but with a little HDMI to VGA converter, you can set these to 640 by 480 or 1280 by 1024. These have various resolutions you can set in here, and then you can just output those right over the VGA. It works perfectly. Thank you very much, Ian, again. Keep up the great work with this project. It is fantastic. Copper Dragon, you as well. so great. And if you haven't played around with one of these, I highly recommend you do. If you live in North America, there are plenty of sources to get it, but Retro Hack Shack, my friend Aaron, has a store and you can buy that stuff directly from him. I think he sells most of this stuff. All right, here's our next item. This came from, I think, Scott. Yes, Scott B, local here in Portland. This is a TZX Duino Mini, which as far as I'm aware is Arduino based. This is a little OLED screen. We got buttons, and this takes an SD card, and you're able to output audio for things like ZX Spectrum and other machines that have the audio input for tapes. So it's a tape emulator, an external tape emulator. Now there are a bunch of these, but I think this one's very specifically is for the ZX line of computers, which is why it's ZX there. So ZX81, ZX80 as well. And doing a quick Google, it says TZX Duino Mini is a compact and Arduino-based device that emulates cassette tape player for vintage computers like ZX Spectrum, loading games from TZX, CAS, and TSX files. These are ones you can readily find online. In the past, I've used a phone. I have like an Android phone, a really old one there that has a headphone jack on it. I've tried to use that, but it doesn't have very loud audio and struggles with certain ZX Spectrums. I think this is better suited for that kind of thing. And it looks like you can pick these up here on Tindy. Here's one for $45, just without the case, but that looks exactly the same. So, oh, out of stock. Sorry about that. It says here, oh, thanks to Scott Baker for designing and sharing this project. So it's pretty cool that I ran into Scott at our local meetup, and I've seen Scott, I think, since giving this to me. I think this was back in July of last year I got this from Scott. I think Scott was trying to tell me, and it was a bit of a blur because it's a while ago, but also a lot of stuff has been going on since. I think this is a remix of a different project that was bigger. So it's a miniaturized version with that little PCB inside that Scott made. But this will be very useful when I get some of my 8-bit British computers out, because I have a bunch of those that I need to work on, and loading tapes onto those has always been a real pain from the phone. And I think this thing will just do a much, much better job. And I see emails from Scott with manuals and stuff like that, so I can figure out exactly how to use this, which won't be in this video. So thank you again, Scott, for giving this to me, and I guess I'll see you at one of our upcoming meetings. Oh, and Scott, if there's a way for people to buy these, because people might want to get one of these, and that link that I found on Tindy was out of stock. So if there's any other sources, please let me know or comment down below. Right, well, since we're on the theme of Portland stuff, this also comes from someone at our local retro meetups. This is the Pico computer. Rumble to Thumps is who designed this thing, and as you can see, it's got a 6502 and a 6522 and some RAM, SRAM that is, and 2 Raspberry Pi Picos. Now what this thing lets you do is develop code for the 6502 to run on real hardware, which this is, but you notice what's missing, and I know you can't see underneath the cover, but it ends right there, so there's really nothing more to it. There are no ROMs. And that is because the Raspberry Pi Picos emulate the ROM and allow you to essentially program this thing with a modern computer and modern tool chains. Now, this particular iteration of this board, it's got VGA and sound, and it has a little USB hub. That's what this connection is going on there, and allows us to have a little thumb drive. Let me plug this thing in, and we'll take a look at what it does right out of the box. PicoComputer VGA version. Now, I've had this floating around for a while, so I'm sure it's out of date, and that's my fault for updating this. And you basically, to update it, you update the Raspberry Pi Pico, because that is the ROM emulator. So I need to grab something I don't use very often, a USB keyboard. I'm going to use this Bondi Blue iMac keyboard. This, I don't know. Look at that. I don't even know how to use this thing. So we have some programs on here. Obviously, this came from a Windows, the thumb drive that's on here. So we have Game of Life, Mandelbrot set, palette, some games, Snake, stuff like that. Wasmon as well. So that's the Wasmon from the Apple I that's on here. So you can use that, because this, I mean, it's a 6502. It's running real hardware. There's also a copy of Basic. Does this work normally? I don't even know how to start Basic. So Basic, RP, 6502. And there we are. Now we're in Enhanced Basic. Yeah, 20 go to 10, not go to 0. Let's try loading something else like palette. Look at it, all the colors. The colors look great. Standard colors, high intensity colors. Right, so it's using a little bit of a ladder DAC with resistors and stuff to create this VGA output, but you have plenty of colors available to you. And let's try Raiders. I haven't actually tried any of this stuff. There it is. We got a little bit of a game. Looks like it's changed resolutions or something. Oh yeah, Space Invaders. And it's pretty fun to see it, and I've really wanted to kind of show it off on the channel, and I need to really show it off a little bit better, because this demo that I'm doing in this is is too short and quick for what this thing actually is and what it can do. But there are plenty of articles, YouTube videos, and lots of information on this. There's what's inside of this case. This just has the extra little hub attached to it. You can buy the PCB for this if you want, right off Tindy. So here it is, 20 bucks, and it is actually in stock. And here's the main project page for this. So this talks about everything that it can do. Funny, it says OPL2 FM sound. I guess that's emulated on the Raspberry Pi Pico, I suppose. Supports Bluetooth LE as well. Obviously through the Raspberry Pi Pico, it supports Wi-Fi, real-time clock. There's Discord, GitHubs, all sorts of stuff. Let's check out the GitHub repo. Yeah, it talks about how to build software, stuff like that for it. And here's some of the games available for it, some of the applications. Basic, Lee Davidson's Enhanced Basic. I guess that's the one that I loaded on here. And remember that this is not emulation, right? The code that we saw was running on the 6502 in the RAM that's on here. It's just that the ROMs are emulated by the Raspberry Pi Picos, and it's also handling the I/O, like the USB support, not to mention the VGA and the sound and stuff like that. So we have the bare bones of what is a 6502 computer, just like any of the other ones. It's just the Pi Picos enable programming this thing super quick and easy because, of course, you don't have to flash ROM chips. It's the Pico itself that's doing it. So using modern development tools, you can develop right for this thing and update it on the fly. You can use modern tool chains. It's pretty awesome. And Rumbled Thumps has a YouTube channel which goes over all of the stuff about how this stuff works. How the tool chains work, how development works for it, stuff like that. 6502 graphics with VGA, stuff like that. So if you're interested in learning 6502 assembly language or even programming in 6502, this is a really good avenue because it allows you to integrate the old 6502 hardware with a modern computer and all the modern tool chains. So I'm really looking forward to playing with this a little bit more, getting those tool chains installed on my computer so I can sort of update this thing on the fly and maybe get my hand at doing a little bit of programming. There's lots of programming examples on how to get this thing up and running. Although, of course, I have tons of computers I can play around with. But if you don't have room for a bunch of old retro computers laying around your house and clogging up the everywhere like I do, something like this is a pretty cool way to run code on actual hardware. Of course, you could buy these chips. These are all modern chips, by the way. Everything that's in here still available. 65CO2 is what's in here, the modern WDC version. Anyhow, this is a very cool project, and looking forward to kind of playing around with it a little bit more once I can find some time. And time is something I have in very, very short supply. By the way, there's another project right here, the Pico 56. I think this was also given to me by Rumbled Thumps because he wanted to play around with the other alternatives. And what this is similar, Pi Pico, but this Pico emulates the CPU and everything, as opposed to having real hardware. But this has VGA, sound, and NES ports as well. So two different approaches to it because you can use a Raspberry Pi Pico to do it all, or you can use the real hardware and interface it like this machine. So people might prefer this over something like this. Okay, I'm running out of space here. There's just stuff everywhere all over the floor, like all the packing material. So there are 4 items there, and there's a huge box right here. You can just see the edge of it. That's all that we have left. Let's just go right for this huge box. Why don't we? So this box is one of the older ones. The bigger things that have been here, some of them have been here for a while. This is December 2024, so a bit over a year ago. Okay, we got a note. There's a t-shirt and there's a big computer here. A big, big computer. Wow, it's heavy. Oh boy. Please don't fail me now, bubble wrap, because I'm lifting it by the bubble wrap. Computergraphic 9000 PS. Right, so this is a beast of a computer. It's big. Full-size desktop AT. And I'm assuming, being Agfa, whatnot, this is a regular PC inside. Oh, the back does not look like a normal PC, really. Oh, poor thing got a little bit of shipping damage right here, a little bit dented in. Agfa Corporation, made in the USA, Wilmington, Massachusetts, dusty fan, image recorder, serial to Apple Talk and Centronics port. Really, really weird. This has got to be a normal PC inside though, doesn't it? It's got to be. Right, let's take a look at the letter. Adrian, hope all is well. Please find enclosed in this package the Agfa computer we spoke of back in early November 2024. Do I remember? No, not much. I vaguely recall this. It took me a while to find a box for shipping. Yeah, no wonder. It was just huge. As mentioned in the email, this computer came from a print shop that closed after 101 years in business. I was interested in a G3 Mac they had for sale, but they made me take this machine as a package deal. I do not know anything about it other than what can be seen from the outside. Mainly, it does not have a recognizable port, and Agfa went as far as to cover the keyboard plug. Yeah, with plugs, keyboard port with the plugs, and it's got two, which kind of implies that whatever this was based on an IBM PC, the original PC, which had a cassette port. By the way, there's a date code on here, and it says October 1989. Let's hope that there hasn't been a battery explosion inside. I suspect that it will have either SCO or AT&T Unix installed. BSD might have been available when this was new and had a VT100 or some other terminal attached. Something very similar to the Plexus P20. Yeah, there it is. Just based on cloned PC components. I am sure the printer attached was an Agfa AccuSet 1000 Plus or an earlier variant, which is a printer that prints on photographic film, which needs to be developed rather than paper. Thank you for taking it off my hands. I hope it's something you can make use of on the channel. Keep up the good work. Joe. P.S. In lieu of candy, I've included a t-shirt that represents Nashville, Tennessee, where I am shipping this from. P.S.S. Be careful, the machine while wrapping. It fought me going to the back, so now has a taste for blood. Luckily, nothing happened. Let's take a look at this t-shirt here. Nashville, Tennessee. Very cool. I love it. Size large. Excellent. That's exactly my size. I am losing weight because I'm on a diet right now, but still, I'm a large. Very, very cool. All right, well, thank you very much for this, Joe. This will definitely be a main channel video. It'll be super fascinating to take this thing apart and see exactly what's going on in here and to actually document it. I don't think the damage on the side here is particularly bad. I'm sure everything inside is probably okay, but I'll be super curious to see what's going on in there and just take a look at that. I think Joe emailed me after I had that machine on the channel that was like a XT that was made for like photo printing, like for a photo booth. And someone locally gave me that and they found it inside a bowling alley. The people at the bowling alley were like, take that computer, we don't want this crap in our ceiling. So they took it, gave it to me. And it was a fascinating machine. It had a weird AT&T kind of video capture card that unfortunately the hard drive was gone, or it was a floppy disk based system actually. And there were no disks. And there was really no documentation on that card. And we were able to find articles talking about photo developing with that machine. Anyways, or not photo development, like photo booth kind of stuff and how you could make money. Your business could make money if you could like have, you know, photo booth and whatever. Anyways, so anyhow, it's going to be pretty cool to take a look at this. If anyone knows anything about this, having seen it, let me flip it around so you can see the front again. Let me know because, oh yeah, it's got sharp edges on it. The front cover is loose, but it is connected. It's not like it's falling off. But anyways, if anyone knows about this thing, please let me know. But what a curious machine. Oh, it says postscript on the front as well. I guess that's the 9000 PS postscript. Looks like it's got a power LED there. Anyways, the whole thing is fascinating. And I bet you, well, if that's a regular PC inside, can't wait to see what it is. 386, I guess, right? And one thing, by the way, I was just updating my spreadsheet. Yeah, this has got to be something that was hooked up to a terminal because there was no VGA or video output port and no keyboard port. So serial based. So that would lend credence to the idea that it's got some kind of a Unix variant. All right, so let's go to the next box. And I know what this one is. This comes from Giordani in Milano, Italy. And this came after the tariff situation. And boy, it was a disaster and a nightmare getting this to the US. And what is in this box, which is all taken apart, and that's because of the tariff situation in the US right now, is an Amiga 500. And the letter that came with it reads, "Dear Adrian, as promised, I'm sending you my old Amiga 500 as a donation. Unfortunately, it's not working." Content, right? "Something is preventing from starting up and it only flashes of yellow and gray when turned on. I remember seeing when I was working, the drive had trouble accepting floppy disks, but obviously I haven't been able to check this further. It's my old family computer and I would really be happy to see it back in service for many, many more years to come. Best regards from Italy, Giordano." This was sent to me kind of when the tariff situation had just started and no one really knew like how to handle the US tariffs that existed now. And even though this computer was broken and old, apparently the shipping people were like, yeah, if it's put together, it's really going to get stuck at customs and this thing. It's like a computer from the 80s. It doesn't work because this was just going to be listed as a gift. So it's all disassembled. But I think all the parts to reassemble it are here. So we have a joystick. I'm going to put this stuff over here, actually, since I really don't have space on my desk. Got some screws here, so I'll put that there. And it looks like in this package, there's a SCART cable and a very dirty mouse. So I don't know where this was stored all of its life, but there's a Commodore Amiga mouse. And we have the Amiga SCART cable. It's cool. I haven't actually seen one of these. I don't have one. So Amiga DB23, I think, to SCART. And then has a audio coming out of it as well. Or sorry, that probably wasn't audio. That was probably composite video, maybe. Not actually sure. All right, looks like we have a second joystick. Is that supposed to spin? I don't think so. Does that one spin? Yes, that one spins too. All right, so there's the computer in a trash bag. Amiga 500s are not trash, everyone. I'm just kidding. There she is. Very dirty. Wow, smells like a bit of burned electronics smell coming out of this bag. So there's the machine. I don't remember if that key was supposed to be broken. We got the side cover. This thing was really well packed, tons of bubble wrap, but unfortunately, the case is broken here. So that's, not that it can't be glued, but that's broken there. So I'll have to email Giordano, find out if this originally had that break there. And we actually have one screw holding the case in, so I'm glad I didn't try to force it. Warranty void, someone has been inside this machine. Oh, there are loose parts inside of this. So yeah, this case is unfortunately kind of seen better days. Is there another screw holding this together? No, yes, there is, right here. Wow, yeah, there's lots of pieces sort of floating around in here. Oh, there's a crack in the case there too. Didn't see that one. I think this case has probably been stored in a pretty hot place just over time. Oh yeah, that's broken right there too. So it's very brittle. Okay, well, just wanted to kind of take a quick look inside. Ooh, look at that funny memory card here. No clock chip on there to cause any kind of issues. So yeah, this is taken apart to some extent. Yeah, we can kind of tell from the underside that this thing was well used. Look at this. This thing got a lot of use. That's very cool though, that it did. Very cool that it did. So we have an Amiga 500 revision 5, 1987-88 date code. Chips say 88 on them. Nothing looks out of the ordinary in here. Everything looks okay. So it'll be fun to try to troubleshoot and fix this thing. Yeah, everything looks good. This RAM card is just funny. It's so small. This is obviously some kind of third-party RAM card, but it's fine. It just has the extra memory on it. That's the extra 512K. So thank you very much, Gio, for sending in your old beloved Amiga 500 personal computer from back in the day. And I'm sure I'll be able to get this thing up and running again. And maybe it won't be that much of a hard problem, but definitely this case has seen far better days than it has now. It's just kind of bent and cracked and whatnot. I think a little bit of crazy glue will get this case back, at least not being totally broken. And please let me know if you're watching that the machine had these breaks in the case before it was shipped, or did this actually come from shipping damage? Because the packing you did was amazing. There was so much packing material, it was very tightly packed. So I don't see how this could have happened from shipping, but who knows? The case is very old and brittle, so anything's possible. And you know what, with that, I think I'm gonna end this video here. I'm running out of steam. It's pretty late. I've actually been working on this for a good number of hours. Even though I try to accelerate these videos like in the post-editing process, the making part still is pretty time consuming. And I've worked on this a good part of the day and my voice is getting pretty tired. So I'm gonna edit up what I have so far. And most likely it's gonna be already super long. So that'll have to be for part 4. But I guess it won't be so turbo because it's only 3 packages. Although, who knows, by the time I get to that stuff, maybe there'll be more packages that have arrived. Either way, huge thank you to everyone who sent stuff in so far. Let's see how many things I've opened up in today's video. I have opened up 15 things, or looked at 15 things. I made really good progress, and like I said, I think, yeah, just, that's it, 3 items, and a huge mess in here. I gotta go through all this packing material on the floor and stuff. But I think I'm gonna leave that for tomorrow. I haven't even barely had my beverage. I gotta finish this, and I'm gonna go watch some TV or Netflix or something. I need to just sort of relax a little bit, and I'll try to edit this up in the morning because yeah, it's gonna be quite a bit of editing to get all this long footage down to a reasonable length. So huge thanks to everyone who sent stuff in. I really appreciate it. Sorry that it's been so slow and I'm so behind on all this stuff, but at least now I've finally put the dent in it that I've needed. And once I'm done with this, I'm going to go back to that old footage I mentioned at the beginning of this video and the other videos as well. The stuff that I've opened years ago and haven't shown yet. I want to just clear the backlog of all the mail call items that have been accumulating for a while. And a huge thanks just again to the generosity of everyone who sends in all this stuff. It's unbelievable how wonderfully nice people are. I mean, sending that Amiga 500 from Italy, that was expensive. That would have cost a fortune. But Gio really wanted to see that thing up and running. And that's what I'm going to be able to do with that machine. We'll give it a good clean and everything. And this, and I mean, there's been so much cool stuff in this episode, just like in the other episodes. So much cool stuff. This is just absolutely amazing. I'm pointing at my laptop here. Anyhow, thank you very much for watching. It's 2026 and I got to get back to the Lisa. Once this stuff is kind of cleared away, I can really resume the Lisa work, and I'm probably gonna have to make a filler video, something else on the main channel in the meantime, just because I can't quite get rid of all this until I've opened up these boxes, and that just takes some time. So anyways, I'll be working on something else in the meantime, but then back to the Lisa, and then I'll get that done, and then there's just an endless amount of stuff to get to. I mean, there's so many things, but yeah, the Archimedes is right there. I want to get back to that, and Mike sent in all those awesome things for that. So yeah, anyways, okay, that's going to be it. Huge thanks to everyone again. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thanks to my members. Thanks to my patrons. It just makes it all possible. And I guess that's going to be that. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.